All right. Good evening, and welcome to Sporlitics, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd. It's a big night for cousin Todd tonight. We'll get to that in a minute. Have you voted? Okay. If you live in these states, Wisconsin, Connecticut, Minnesota, and Vermont, your primary is today. Please vote. NASCAR with Stephen as he discusses Kevin Harwick's win in Michigan, where they're voting. President Biden signed today the Science and Chip Act into law at the White House. Britney Griner was sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison. The FBI executes search warrants at Trump's Mar-A-Lago estate while he's in New York in a document investigation. Todd and Tennis, as he discussed Serena Williams evolving away from that sport. Monkeypox continues to spread as it is now a public health emergency. I'm talking about Oklahoma University's football team, assistant coach Gundy, is out after saying a racially charged word. Autopsy commissioned by the family of Brianna Grier says her cause of death is consistent with severe blunt force trauma. Payrolls in the United States increased 528% in July. Much better than expected, and a sign of strength for our job market. The Kansas abortion surprise vote last week and what it means for Roe versus Wade. Vice President Harris cast her 25th tie-breaking vote with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act on Sunday, moving her within 6 votes of the almost 2-century-old record held by former Vice President John Calhoun. In the Ahmad Arbery case, Greg McMichael, 66, apologized to the Arbery family during his prison sentencing hearing. President Biden also today signed the NATO ratification documents for Finland and Sweden. Those things and more, if we can fit it in. We've got a ton, but first up, it's always Stephen with NASCAR. Let's play, Stephen.
If his voice comes in, I don't know if we're having technical difficulties because you were breaking up through that whole intro.
Yeah, then you speed up and slow down, speed up and slow down.
Well, I was just talking normally. I'm not going to say it all over again.
Now it's in perfectly.
Yeah. It's like when you try to go mechanical.
That's technology.
When you try to go mechanical.
Wherever you are, stay where you are now.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't moved.
I know.
And you can see on the screen I haven't moved. So you know it's
whatever button, whatever you did there for something.
I didn't do anything different. So let me play this little clip from NASCAR. And after the clip, Stephen, you're going to talk about Kevin Harwick's win in Michigan.
It is not where you start the season, but where you end. Kevin Harwick ending a 65-race winless drought on Sunday, picking up his 6th career win at Michigan. And it was big, the largest crowd at Michigan since 2016. A sold-out infield for the first time in a decade. Came down to great timing. Harwick with a late pit stop. Then he gets help from another caution flag. And on the restart, with 35 laps to go, he pulls away from the field and ends that drought stretching back nearly 2 years. Happy picks up his 59th career victory.
Yeah, it's been a while. And, coming to Michigan, this has been a great place for us. And just got to thank all the fans that stuck with us through this little dry spell. So hopefully we can get back to victory lane again soon.
Now the win also gets Harwick a spot in the NASCAR playoffs, and a big congratulations to him.
Very exciting.
I don't think they.
Somebody is blowing their nose.
I don't think they were watching.
Go
ahead, Stephen.
Oh, Congratulations to Kevin Harwick after going so long on a winless streak. He's one of the best drivers ever. And this car here has really befuddled him, the new car. And as it has most people over 40 that have been driving the other style car for so long, this is something you have to learn all over again. It's just, I can understand the learning curve is there, and now he's got it. He's been doing progressively better for about the last 3 or 4 races. And he's really getting it together. And he hasn't won. He hasn't even led laps, really. Maybe a lap here and a lap there when everybody pitted or whatever. But he hasn't done anything. And I was so happy for this week because I had him finishing in the top 5 because he always does well at Michigan. This is like one of his tracks. I think he's won maybe the last 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 or something here. And Ford, because it's Michigan, it's Detroit. It's a Ford track. It's where Ford wins most often, but they had the worst odds. With that means take Ford all day long because they're gonna win, and they're trying to psych you out. So it was a great race. These cars are phenomenal. They are unbelievable, and the racing has been better than it ever has. If they keep it like this, racing will come back as strong as it ever was. It is so enjoyable. Everything they have done, every step they have taken has been to make this a better sport. Everything they've done, the cars are better. They're bringing in drivers. The young drivers can understand these cars. And for the last about 5 races, Bubba Wallace has been doing great because because these guys are getting used to the cars, and they're made for younger guys to learn. And there's most of the younger people who don't. Bubba got a second this time. He could have won last week's race. It's because it's so different. But if you're smart and you can adapt to new things and you're young, you're more agile. And these younger smart guys can jump onto this. Then there's 4 more races until the playoffs, and it's going to get really crazy until then. Now Kevin Harwick just got himself into the playoffs because he won a race. He's automatically in. I think there's 1 spot left, because there's been so many different winners this year, and he was so fortunate to get this win. And Daytona is mixed up in this as well before the playoffs, which has never been like that. And that means anything can happen. So the excitement around NASCAR for people who pay attention is as huge as it's been since probably the 1970s. It's been really great. It's been a really good year.
All right, so we have something to look forward to. Let's see what's going on with this football coach in Oklahoma. Watch this, and then Stephen and then Aguna comment.
All right, let's get to this now. Breaking overnight, OU's assistant head football coach Cale Gundy has announced his resignation after more than 2 decades at the university. And KOCO's Shelby Montgomery has been following this for us all morning long. Joins us from Norman right now. So Shelby, explain this to us. It extends from an incident from last week.
Shelby, good morning. This incident happened during a film session last week. Now, overnight, we're hearing from Gundy and OU's head football coach Brent Venables. Overnight, Gundy posted his statement on Twitter. He says during that film session, he picked up the player's iPad and read the words on the screen. His statement said, quote, "One particular word that I should never under any circumstance have uttered was displayed on that screen. In the moment, I did not even realize what I was reading, and as soon as I did, I was horrified." In a statement, head coach Brent Venables thanked Gundy for his commitment to the team and said, quote, "We also acknowledge that in stepping aside, he's placed the program and the welfare of our student athletes first. In coaching and in life, we are all accountable for our actions and the resulting outcomes." Gundy calling those words, quote, "not malicious or intentional." He also called them shameful and hurtful, no matter his intentions. Now, players and coaches are expected to meet here for practice this morning, but we've already been told they will not be speaking about this incident today, but rather sometime this week. Live in Norman, Shelby Montgomery, KOCO 5 News.
So then my question becomes, Stephen, why are they not addressing the player who had the information on their iPad in addition to the coach?
That's a good point. I don't know. I think that they should all get together and just like Rudy and put all their shirts on the table and say, we're not going to play until you bring him back. He's made a mistake. He was reading something. It wasn't malicious. I believe him. I mean, he was reading something he read. That's a mistake. And for him to step down because he feels like he has to step down and everybody's like, you're going to have to step down or we're going to get fired is ridiculous. I have to say, bring him back. He's a good coach. And just let it go. It's almost creepy. It's almost really creepy to go after him like this.
So based on what he just said, again, it's creepy. First off, what type of level or where do the Oklahoma Sooners stand? You know, they have a great.
Are they in the Big 12 or the Big 10? They're a pretty big program. But see, first thing, he should have never. I mean, so this is in an age of very hypersensitivity, right? So he should have known better. Now, whether he should have stepped down, I think that's a little bit much. He should be held accountable for his actions. Let's not poo-poo on this, though, because, again, just like on both sides, there are good sides on both people. You know, there are people that actually get hurt by this. So you got to take their feelings in consideration, too. I do think that this fuels the right-wing, anti-woke kind of movement because they feel that this is the type of thing that is attacking them. Like we can't say or make any mistakes or they're going to come after us kind of thing. But what this should spark is a conversation. So I wouldn't dismiss it, but I would use that as an opening dialogue to understand why is this insensitive? Why did he do what he did? You know, what could he do to create a dialogue or environment where, you know, you address the big elephant in the room and not just sweep it under the rug or say he made a mistake and all blah, blah, blah. No, because there's so much sensitivity going around this issue. It should be a kumbaya moment in which we come together and we understand why people would be hurt, why people see it not as a big deal. And so it should be a unifying moment. But the first thing you got to do in a unifying moment is acknowledge the wrong that was done. You can't just dismiss the wrong because otherwise nobody's going to learn from it.
All right. Cousin Todd, no one's going to ask you about football. We're going to go to something
I want to talk about football.
No,
nobody wants to hear you.
Not with a shirt like that. You're talking about
soccer shirt on.
That type of shirt. You should be talking
That's
about
a soccer shirt. That's not a football shirt.
Don't do it.
Oh, that is hilarious.
This could be an Eagles.
Maybe a gardening or
never be an Eagles.
I like that runway.
I do like that shirt.
Runway. Devil wears Prada.
Yeah, you don't know nothing about fashion, so let's be quiet, okay?
Okay.
Welcome back to Get Up. We have breaking news. Serena Williams announcing on Instagram this morning that she will soon retire from tennis. Williams, who won her first match in over a year yesterday, revealed her plans this morning on her social media accounts and linking to an article she wrote in September's edition of Vogue magazine. Here's what Serena wrote on Instagram. Vogue September issue cover. There comes a time in life when we have to decide to move in a different direction. That time is always hard when you love something so much. My goodness, do I enjoy tennis. But now the countdown has begun. I have to focus on being a mom, my spiritual goals, and finally discovering a different but just exciting Serena. I'm going to relish these next few weeks. The U.S. Open begins at the end of the month. We are joined right now by ESPN tennis analyst and, of course, the tennis great herself, Pam Shriver, on the phone. Pam, thanks so much at the last minute for joining us here. And just to get your reaction to this news, is there surprise at all?
Not really a surprise. I feel like the year off between Wimbledon 2021, when she injured her hamstring, the loss to Harmony Tan a little over a month ago. And I feel like it was a very conscious decision to make this push towards the U.S. Open. I think in the year off, she realized she wasn't in it long term. But I think for her, the decision to end her career at the place, it overwhelmingly looks like it's the U.S. Open from everything she said. And that's where she won her first of 23 majors in 1999. So I think it is coming full circle. And a lot of times, athletes like to have that feeling of coming full circle and coming out on their own terms.
It's amazing as we're showing.
Okay, Cousin Todd.
Okay, I thought she was going to retire this year or next year, which is why I got tickets for the U.S. Open this year. She did well after having a baby. She, what people do after they have a baby, they have to challenge themselves to come back. It's not easy to come back at that age after having a child. So,
but my question would be, how would you know? Did you have a baby?
Never you mind whether or not I had a baby. Why is it you Republicans stay in people's snatches? Good Lord. Anyway,
Todd, you want some tissue, Todd? You want a little tissue?
Anyway,
right here under the
she did well, and I like the fact that she's going out at the U.S. Open, and she's had a good career, her and her sister. Now I think Venus is going to be retiring probably next year. And Venus is older than Serena, by the way. But nevertheless, those girls brought tennis up. People weren't into tennis before Venus and Serena, and now they are. So they've done the tennis world justice, just like Tiger Woods did for the golf world. So I hope, and she says she's doing this so she can have another baby and stuff. So I hope.
Well, who said? I never heard her say she was doing it so she could have another baby.
Yeah.
She said she has to focus on being a mom.
No.
Why don't you stay out of her vagina?
Family.
Whoa.
And extending her family. So
she didn't say that.
Hey, Republicans.
She said an exciting new Venus. New Serena. That's what they showed it to. You want me to play this again?
That wasn't the only clip. So she's going to have another baby. I believe she'll have it on her own, but she may use a surrogate. But I think she'll have another baby on her own. She's going to expand her family.
TMI.
So anyway, now let me go back to that football coach.
No, don't bother going back.
That
nobody wants to hear it.
Is she just too old to play tennis now? Is that what it comes down to?
Now,
No,
when
ma'am.
I said years ago she needed to retire, then Todd, remember Todd jumping all over me, Aguna? And
How old is she? How old is she, Todd?
She just had a baby.
How old is she?
And she had to get her body back. And so she won,
she 40?
mind you. She won 3 or 4 Grand Slams after having the baby.
She did not win 3 or 4 Grand Slams after having the baby. The baby's only 5 years old. She just won her first match in 400 days. So if she won her first match in 1 year, how could she have won 3 or 4 Grand Slams within 4 years?
Okay, see, you don't know anything about tennis. You're used to ghetto basketball and football.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes, ma'am. So she got to the finals 4 times.
Oh, you said she won Grand Slams. Now, winning Grand Slams and getting to the finals are 2 different things.
No, she didn't. She just got nervous on the end. Remember Osaka beat her that year? But that was getting all the way to the finals.
I didn't say anything about her getting nervous or anything. I'm saying you misstated what she won.
No, she was in.
You were wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And you misstated what she won.
No.
So they're ghetto, but they make more money than she does.
What?
The football players and the basketball players are ghetto, but they make more money than Venus.
White boy say what?
Huh?
Venus or Serena?
So now, anyway, I'm moving on. I don't want to get caught up into this.
Of course you don't.
Republican circle.
Of course you don't.
That coach that read something, and it is unclear. I guess he read somebody's iPad, and he was reading what was written on the iPad. And when you see that word, you know better than to say it, but just say he said it. He would have immediately said, "Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry about that," and went on, finished reading. But he didn't. So there's something to that. So for Stephen and Aguna, two-faced Aguna,
excuse you.
Say, oh well,
no, you agree with him all you want, Aguna. He gonna throw you under the bus.
Of course he will.
Yes,
don't
sorry for being common
sense. Aguna.
No.
What are you talking about?
You
because
two-faced.
he should have resigned.
What lovely two faces those are.
When people resign, it's not just because they were bored. He knew better. So he said, I better get out of here.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He made
I'm
a
not
mistake.
giving, of course you are. He's a
Maybe
white boy.
sometimes
That's
when
what you
people
do.
wait a minute. Not everybody's like you. Sometimes when people read, they read and it comes out their mouth before they even acknowledge what they're saying. Maybe he thinks
listen to
differently
me carefully.
than you.
He would have
You got to
said,
give him the benefit of the doubt.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Does he have a history of doing things like that? Does he have a history of saying that word? Maybe when he reads,
Steven, you're not acknowledging.
Well, actually, you're taking up his time, cousin Todd. You already had your time. You went back to it.
I'm just saying, let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'm not giving
his
him
team likes him. The players like him. He said a word that he regrets. Let him come back and coach the team.
I don't think he apologized though, did he?
Anyway,
he wanted to stay. He resigned.
Yeah, but that's kind of like an apology when you give up your job. You're like, all right, I'm sorry, I'm out of here.
He would have said, "Oh, excuse me," and that would have been it, and he would have kept going. But he deliberately did that.
Okay.
And who
he didn't deliberately do it. I don't think he deliberately did that, and I don't need to waste our time talking about that.
Then why would
he step down?
Told him to step down.
Thing. They told him to. How do you know that?
I'm assuming they told him to step down because he wouldn't have done it on his own.
In that sentence,
and y'all are doing Todd's doing a lot of assuming as well.
I'm not doing any assuming. I'm using good
common wanted to
sense.
stay, he would stay.
He made an ass out of you and me. Todd did.
Thank you, Todd.
He assumed.
There were a couple of Democrat donkeys.
And Keith is here. Keith, I did not do anything to you last week, so do not put me.
Yes, he did. So Keith,
we're going to talk about it, Todd. It's Fight
all right.
Club.
So
let's talk about Fight Club.
Don't put me in that. I said nothing.
Okay.
I don't.
So I asked Keith what happened. Everybody, is I asked Keith to bring his head up. He had his head down, and he was reading, and all we saw was his head. So Todd was laughing, and Aguna said he needed Rogaine. He was very offended by it and felt as though Aguna and Todd both owe him an apology. I felt that way because Aguna was saying that he had some sort of problems with his hair, and he's saying Aguna's bald and Todd has a receding hairline. So how in the world can they say anything about his full head of hair? So I'm going to let you comment, Keith.
Hey, all right. Hey, look, hey guys, just for the record, I wasn't really offended. Stacy had mentioned it to me, so I then said that's where I went, with the bald stuff. I don't attack people personally, so I just want to leave it at that.
So I wanted Aguna and cousin Todd to apologize to Keith for embarrassing him on the internet forever.
I wasn't embarrassed, guys. It really, Stacy, it didn't embarrass me.
Nah, man.
It didn't bother.
You haven't
seen all the memes. You're going to get an apology. You haven't seen all the memes they've made about it.
You're going to get an apology. I'm going to apologize and not give you some more of this smoke, Keith. Don't come on here with no sensitivity about your hair, and then you come on here with like a toupee / Brillo pad looking. Hey, at least you should have brushed it today. I mean, Todd has a perm in his beard. You have an egg nest in the back of your head. Just deal with it and move on. What? No. Hey, you better get some of that hairspray.
Todd glued his beard on because Todd can't grow a beard.
Graffiti artist.
Todd glued it on.
Brother.
I think it's all
make it easy.
Pubic hair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Steven, you said he had pubic hair on his head?
Yeah,
Todd should be ashamed. Hey, that's your boy right there coming at you, Keith. He said you had pubic hair.
No, I'm talking about Todd's beard.
No.
I'm talking about Todd's beard. I ain't talking about Keith.
No. See, there's a bunch of bullies. You guys need to go to anti-bullying training.
Todd, I owe you an apology, Todd.
I think all of you guys need to go with anti-bullying. We are an anti-bullying show.
Got mine.
Now I owe Todd an apology. Sorry, Todd.
All I know is I still got mine, and it's black.
All right.
Well, at least brush
so,
it.
Do you dye your hair, Keith?
My wife says brush it. At least
my
brush
wife
it,
says
Keith.
we sound like kids.
Do you dye your hair,
yeah,
Keith?
they act like kids.
I used
No,
to
I
have
don't.
BDBs like
You
that.
don't
in
have any
kindergarten,
gray
too.
because I'm younger than you and I got gray on my face.
And I got all my
Okay.
hair.
So
right.
if you look at this article,
Even has a mullet.
CNN.com article,
No,
Trevor
I don't.
Reed, Britney Griner's 9-year prison sentence by Russian court is clearly political. So Trevor Reed, a U.S. citizen freed earlier this year after being detained in Russia for nearly 3 years, said Friday that Britney Griner's sentence by a Russian court is clearly political. She received a sentence of 9 years of jail time.
Wow.
She plays there in the off season and was accused of trying to smuggle less than 1 gram of cannabis oil in her luggage. They said, regardless of how you feel about Britney Griner's case, the sentence is clearly political. There's no denying that. Do you agree, Keith?
Well, yeah, I have to say I agree that is excessive. 9 years? Man. I mean, we don't get that for killing a person or something. Or, you know, a lot of times we commit, not we, but I mean, people commit crimes here and they're stealing $1 million worth of jewelries and jewelry. They're out on bail very shortly. Anyway, I'm just going to leave that alone. That's maybe when Trump gets there, when Trump gets back in office, maybe he can get her back.
Yeah, when the felon gets back in office.
So we're not going to spend a long time on this, but I thought it was important to address. We've got to move on because I don't want us to. We've got a lot to cover tonight. Go ahead, Aguna. What did you want to say?
She was looking at 10 years. They gave her 9. And when you're in a different country, you better be smarter than that. You don't go into North Korea and steal a sign because they're going to kill you, like they did that boy, the young boy, about 18 years old, that went there on a college trip. Warm Beer. His name was Warm Beer. You don't do stuff in other countries. You got to be smarter than that.
And that's why we don't.
If they have strict drug laws, you have to know that while you're there. You want to go make money? Go make money. Don't bring stuff into that country.
Be very careful.
Don't bring stuff into that country like that. That's a huge mistake.
Bring our Constitution back. Bring the Constitution back in America. That's why we need
Keith, you've already left it alone. Just leave it alone. Like your hair. Leave it alone.
But that's what we need.
Okay, she's flipping
all right.
the screen back and forth, getting
all right.
busy.
Yeah, every time you put your head down, she flips the screen.
Yeah, I guess that's a signal, right? So,
that
all right.
voice.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No,
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
The whole time I have my mic on, so I don't know what's going on. All right. Watch this.
We're following some breaking news out of Georgia now. The 3 men convicted of killing Ahmad Arbery are being sentenced on hate crimes charges. Travis McMichael and his father Gregory were both sentenced to life in prison today. In the next hour, William Bryant's sentence is expected to be handed down as well. All 3 men were found guilty on federal hate crime charges back in February. Now, the killing of Ahmad Arbery made national headlines after video showed those men chasing him through a neighborhood in Georgia and shooting him in the middle of a street. I want to bring in NBC News correspondent Ron Allen and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos now. Ron, I'll start with you on the ground there. Walk us through what happened in court so far today.
Well, for the first time, there was an apology from Greg McMichael, the elder McMichael, the father of Travis McMichael, the man who actually pulled the trigger, but who was also involved in the hunt for and the chase of Ahmad Arbery. He apologized to the family. He said that he wanted to assure them that there was never malice in his heart or his son's heart that day, and that he never wanted this to happen. And this is the first time that they've ever said anything like that, and especially directly to the family. This, of course, as Travis McMichael and his father were handed life sentences in federal prison this afternoon. There's one more hearing to come for William Bryan, the third defendant in this case, who was also convicted of several felonies that could land him in federal prison for the rest of his life as well. They already are serving time in state prison, and much of the hearing today, for the McMichaels at least, was focused on their attorneys trying to get the judge to sentence them to serve their time in federal prison instead of state prison, saying that there were death threats, that it was a backdoor death penalty for Travis McMichael to go into a Georgia state prison. They also pointed out that the Federal Department of Justice is investigating violence in the Georgia Department of Corrections and has been for a number of years. So that was what a lot of the hearing was. The judge rejected all that, ordered the men sent back to state prison to begin serving this life sentence and adding on yet another one in federal prison.
Danny, all three of these men had submitted guilty pleas in this case. The judge threw those pleas out. Help us understand that. Why did that happen, and how could that have affected the sentences that we are seeing handed down today?
A defendant does not have an absolute right to have his guilty plea agreement accepted by the judge. Anytime I have a client enter into a guilty plea agreement, I have that moment of anxiety because I still know there's another hurdle. The judge has to approve of it. And in this case, there was pushback because the family of Arbery was not pleased at the idea of them being able or being recommended to spend their sentence in federal as opposed to state prison, which is really an interesting thing because a federal judge has very limited power to even control where a defendant spends his federal sentence, let alone a Georgia state sentence. So all really a judge can do is make a recommendation. Normally, once you're sentenced, you are property of the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons. And in this case, because Georgia first got its, its procedural clause into these gentlemen, now Georgia gets to control their sentence. And only after they finish serving their Georgia sentence will they be sent over to serve their federal sentence. And the federal judge doesn't have a whole lot of discretion there.
All right, NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, Ron Allen for us on the ground in Georgia today. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
Okay, so Cousin Todd, let's start with you. Is it a backdoor death sentence for the younger McMichael because he actually pulled the trigger for him to go to the state prison as opposed to the federal prison?
No.
Why not? They're saying they're sending pictures around. They're having these phones they're not supposed to have. They're sending pictures around. They're threatening to kill him.
Who cares? So what? That has nothing to do with it. He committed a crime. He's got to do the time, and the state of Georgia got him first. So that's all. That's neither here nor there. Oh, he's afraid they're going to do something to me. Give me a break. He killed Ahmad Arbery, and he's got to pay for that. Now, this reminds me of Stephen, who is going to flip-flop yet again. This is what he's known for. He said Ahmad Arbery should have just done what they told him to do. When white men tell you to get on the ground, you get on the ground with a shotgun pointed at you. And so this is America. Of course, Stephen doesn't recognize that unless they're white. And so Ahmad Arbery had no idea what these sick white freaks were going to do. And so, no, he's not getting on the ground. And I said he was chased. Of course, Stephen said, no, he wasn't. And then he found out he was chased, not only by that truck, by another truck that tried to run him off the road. And so he didn't know what they were going to do to him. So, of course, he's not going to just lay down and allow them to. Anyway, these people were racist. And sometimes racist people don't recognize the way they're thinking is racist. Because if he was a white boy, because there were whites that went into his house as well, they didn't even think about those whites. They never bothered with them. But see, this black boy went in there and, he's got no business going in there. And so, and it wasn't even their house, mind you. And so they shot him and killed him. So they should get life in prison. And the father is the most responsible, the ex-cop. And the son had talked about how his father was a racist anyway.
So stupid.
And so now they have to spend life in prison, and they're trying to debate, we're scared of going to the state prison. Who cares? You're going to state prison, and whatever happens to you is what happens to you. That's what happens to jailbirds.
Yep. Deal with it.
Deal with it, murderers.
Okay, so Stephen, do you want to respond to that? The Arbery trial, in which they got 2 life sentences, 1 federal. They want to serve it in the federal prison system where they feel safer than in the state prison system where they feel they're already getting death threats.
It's all redundant because they already have life in prison without parole, and then they put this on top of them. They're like, "Wow, this is more than life in prison without parole. I don't know what that could be. Maybe I'm going to have a reincarnation while I'm in prison. I'm not really sure." But these guys should never have done what they had did. But you know what? I didn't see any white people going into this house. First of all, I just saw Arbery going in his house. It looked like he was casing. But you know what? It's none of my business.
It looked like he was casing. He went in there 3 different times.
Todd, let me talk. I go into houses that are not all the way built.
I know. Are you casing?
I used to be in draft in architecture.
Are you casing the houses?
I didn't talk while you talked. You need to shut up.
Please. I'm not going to do that while you accuse this man of casing a house and you didn't case the house.
What I'm saying is these guys should never have done it. But what the truth is, if you saw the original film, Arbery jumped to the man who was holding the gun, punched him in the face, and tried to take his gun. He committed 2 felonies. That's the law. But you know what? At that time, if you're a black man and you're a white man and you do something to a black man, you're going to get life in prison. That's what that was all about. That won't for real. They should not get life in prison. And the father shouldn't get life in prison.
What should they get?
And the other guy that taped it shouldn't get life in prison.
Racist,
this was an
idiot.
egregious.
He's a passive-aggressive racist.
Abortion of justice is what this was. This was egregious. This was not justice. A lot of things have not gone.
But you don't agree with it.
They should not get life in prison.
Okay.
They were not hunting him down and chasing him down.
Stacey,
they were waiting for him.
Can I have an opinion?
If you come up into a shotgun, you put your hands up. And somebody else has a gun, you put your hands up. You don't attack the person with a gun or you're going to get killed. Everybody knows that.
Okay.
They were
and
attacking
to say
him.
that you think they were going to kill him if he didn't stop is stupid. The man was an ex-cop.
Okay, go ahead, Cousin Todd. And then I've got to move on.
Okay.
What about me?
Really quick.
Can I say something?
Oh, go ahead, Aguna.
Wait a minute. This is really quick.
Let me just say this. It's very interesting that these cowards, in their moment of weakness in front of a judge, want to hide behind their privilege and decide where they need to do.
What privilege do they have?
They're sitting there trying to understand. Again, look. Can I finish, please? You went on your little emotional rant of babble. Let me just finish and just clear this up. Because as you can see on this show, you see white supremacy live and in action. They chased this man in the street, and he has no right as a black man to defend himself. He was defending himself. And law enforcement will even teach you, you either fight or you run. You can't even hunker in place because they're going to kill you if you hunker in place. There's no right for these folks to detain him. They had no right. They could have called the police and just left it at that. No, they pursued him. They engaged him. And then all of a sudden you want to blame the victim for committing a crime because he was defending himself and going after the gun and trying to stop them from attacking him? Please, let's move on from this. Justice was served. The time has been done.
Before we move on,
get over it, Stephen. Stop being a sore loser.
I'm over it. I said they shouldn't do it. They shouldn't have done it.
Stephen said
then you should have left it at that.
He looked like he was casing the joint.
Yeah, they have film of other people going in there doing the same thing.
I haven't seen that.
Well, we're telling you, don't believe us?
Show me.
Okay, slow down. Let me make this point.
Google it, Stephen. They have film showing that there were other people going in the same property.
That's
it's
right.
fact.
But let me just make this point.
They should never have confronted him. They should never have confronted him.
Okay, go ahead, Todd. Let's listen to Todd for a second.
Yay. This is how white bigots think. He said it looked like he was casing the place. Then he said, I've gone into houses that were being built. He's such an ignorant bigot. He doesn't even know how racist that was. So I asked him, were you casing the place when you went in there? No, I'm white. No. Only blacks case the place. Now, what does one look like when they're casing the place? Like you?
Much sense. He doesn't get it. It was over his head. It was over his head, Todd.
Let me have Keith's response, and then we've got Nas on. So, Keith, do you want to respond to this?
Yeah, I'll just say, I have to admit, I have to agree with Aguna on this one because that guy, they should have just left him alone. Call the police or what have you. Just leave it alone. There was no reason to have a shotgun, to be armed and take up their arms and with deadly force, use deadly force. And the guy was unarmed. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you.
Nice.
Was that hard? Is that hard to be empathetic?
Also, why you hear about things like the anti-lynch vision in the anti-lynching law is about people forming or deputizing themselves to be law enforcement, and then deciding what they're going to do in the street with another citizen. So you get a bunch of people together and you say, hey, I think that guy did such and such, and you roll up on him with a gun, and then something happens afterwards, you're going to be charged. So that's kind of what leads into, some of that anti-lynching law we see now being put up. But as far as the Arbery case, I mean, it's open and shut. We all know what it is. I'm not going to sit here and have an argument over somebody with something that's already been proven 100%. But you can also see the radicalization of people on the right, to where all of these cases, which they've been wrong about, where they're always talking about law and order, and then you see them crying today because law and order from yesterday, when their hero had a warrant served against them. So you kind of see how this works. But as far as them being moved to another prison, that's just a legal process. That's what their lawyer's supposed to do. Supposed to try to get them moved. You make the claim that they're terrified and fearing for their life. Yada yada yada. That's what the lawyer is supposed to do. Now, will he get it? I doubt it. And as far as them being hit with 2 lifetime sentences, yeah, they put things in like that because you still have the appeal process, and you still have, the good behavior and all this other stuff, to where you can get your sentence reduced in cases of extremism, where you're talking about racial hate, where somebody is killing somebody with the idea of them being black being a primary factor, deciding they were casing the house, and we're going to roll up and become law and order ourselves as citizens. Who deputized you? We did, ourselves. So that's why you get that case. But yeah, man, it's really sad to watch Stephen kind of, deteriorate.
Stacey, can I make one last point? One last point for our viewers. Morris Ford, July 25th, 1946, is the last known lynching in Georgia. And so let these bastards rot in the damn Georgia prison for what they did. Let them rot for it.
The man, Arbery would not be dead if Arbery had not rushed the man with the gun, and that was
federal
stupid.
lynching
Anybody
in
on
Georgia,
this show rushes somebody
rot
with
in
a
a
gun
Georgia
is
prison.
stupid.
Let them rot in a Georgia prison.
Keith, would you rush somebody holding a gun? No, Keith.
Get over it, Stephen.
Keith, you're not stupid.
In a Georgia prison.
I said, Keith, they should have left the man alone. Keith, did you hear me say that? I said they should have left him alone.
But
they should get a hobby. They should have left him alone.
See what this radical is? See this passive-aggressive supremacist is saying?
They should have left him alone.
Let them rot in Georgia prison.
Back at the Capitol today, Vice President Kamala Harris cast a tie-breaking vote on Saturday evening to advance a massive spending bill in the Senate. The bill aims to reduce drug and health care costs while spending billions to combat climate change. Lawmakers are now debating amendments to that legislation, and those debates could push a final vote past midnight tomorrow. Michael George reports.
It's a working weekend on Capitol Hill, where the Senate has convened to debate and vote on a sprawling bill called the Inflation Reduction Act. The bill contains provisions aimed at some of President Biden's domestic priorities, including lower health care and prescription drug costs. It also includes nearly $370 billion in spending on various climate change programs. Democrats say it would be the biggest investment of its kind in U.S. history.
To reduce greenhouse gas emissions not only does the right thing for America, it sets an example for the world. Despite all the excuses, there's no excuse for ignoring climate change.
Republicans unanimously oppose the legislation.
Higher taxes, bigger government, more inflation, and fewer jobs. This is a bill whose time has not come.
The bill is not subject to a filibuster, but advancing it will require the support of all 50 Democrats and a tie-breaking vote by Vice President Kamala Harris. The GOP plans to introduce dozens of amendments in an effort to slow or even derail the process.
We have a bill which is a delicate balance between the moderates and the center left and the progressive left in our conference. and any amendment to that bill could kill the bill.
A final Senate vote is not expected to take place until late Sunday or even early Monday morning. If it passes, it would move on to the House for approval. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Okay, let's start with Keith. The Inflation Reduction Act. I don't believe it has passed yet, but this the Senate did pass it.
Kamala gave her vote.
She passed it, but I don't think it's
goes
gone
to the House
yet.
It's going to the House.
It hasn't gone to the House. So everyone knows from high school civics, it has to pass one chamber, whether it be the House or the Senate, and then it has to go to the other chamber, whether it be the House or the Senate. It has to pass both chambers, and then it goes to the desk of the president where he signs it into law. That's our process. But according to this NewYorkTimes.com article by Paul Krugman, it says they really did it. The Inflation Reduction Act, which is mainly a climate change bill with a side helping of health reform, passed the Senate, and it will easily pass the House. So this is a very big deal. And Cousin Todd, I'm going to share my screen, and I want you to tell us and tell our listeners why this is such a big deal.
Wait a minute. I thought you said me.
Well, before I share why the big deal is, I want to say to you Republicans like Stacy, how much do you pay for gas? Stacy? Aguna, how much do you pay for gas? Stephen? How much do you pay for
more
gas?
than I did when Trump was in office. More than I did when Trump was in office.
Every week, Stacy says this. But this week, she decided not to say it. Could it be because gas prices are dropping?
Yeah,
temporarily.
But they're not dropping enough. I'm still paying $4 in the Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware area. I'm still paying $4 and something a gallon. Keith, in California,
Steven, you
how
don't
much
know
are you paying per gallon for gas?
Yeah, we're still paying over $5, close to $6. And by the way, when they're taking oil, they're taking gas from the reserves. That's like me
No,
taking.
they're not. That's just a fraction of what they're doing.
Savings.
That is a lie. That's not how it works.
Whoa.
Hey, look, I'm a capitalist. I know how the global market works, and that's a lie.
We're depleting our reserves.
No, we're not.
All right.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, so wait a minute.
No.
Go ahead,
Excuse
Keith.
me. Let's let Keith finish. Can we let Keith finish?
I'm gonna lie.
We're gonna let Keith finish.
I'm an economist. Why would I lie?
Go ahead,
It's my
Keith.
money.
Okay.
Go ahead, Keith.
You have to mute them. So
You're a liar.
you're gonna have to mute everybody.
ahead,
Listen, Stacey, I just want to say that they've been going into the reserves. That's the only reason that the possibility of these prices lowered a little bit. But guess what? They're going to go back up once we have depleted our reserves. And that will happen because it's already a fact.
How much is gas selling a barrel? How much is gas selling a barrel right now?
Regulations will not allow them to drill.
It's selling $95 a barrel.
They've
That's the
shut
same
down
it was.
Keith, they made a huge deal with Saudi Arabia.
Oh, we're right.
They made a huge deal with Saudi Arabia, Keith.
Yeah.
It ain't nothing to do with the reserves. The reserves the reserves is just a show.
You're gonna allow
they made
this
a huge
nonsense
deal
to
with
sit on
Saudi
the
Arabia
show and not rebut it?
And by the way, Stacey, can I make a
this is
comment
how-
about the?
Go ahead, make your comment real fast, Keith, so I can move on to Aguna.
Yeah, well, you got to. Aguna's already talking. I mean, what is this? All right, but anyway, the thing is, I just wanted to say about the bill, that's going to the House. I have to say that it's really interesting. I'd like to see Aguna weasel out of this one. He's the expert. Whenever government, here's the basic concept: when government takes money out of the economy, by way of taxation and by way of regulations, they are taking money from the producers, which are the American people, and they are putting it where? Where are they putting it? Storing it up so that they can spend it or give it to foreign aid like they do Ukraine. Okay, so that is not going to help the economy of the United States. It may help the economy of China, but that's not the principle that we should follow, and that is my opinion.
Lord, give me the confidence of Keith.
All right.
So I don't know anything, and I'll just keep talking. Like
I know. The only problem with Keith is,
and I'm gonna just keep going with all the confidence in Keith.
Keith is still trying to live through the 1980s and apply 80s politics today, and it's just not the same. We have a global economy. Individuals like you and me, we can invest in the global economy. We can own ExxonMobil stock, who had record profits despite oil barrel prices. I'm not talking about the price at the pump. I'm talking about the price that the brokers pay in order to gouge and set the price at the pump. And that's why Joe Schmo public like you don't understand how gas prices work. They're trying to recoup their profits because they hadn't gotten profits during the pandemic. So oil companies are making record profits. And guess what? The supply hasn't even changed. So what does that mean? They're setting the prices. Anyway, we get back to this bill. Let's talk about the bill where people can understand. The Democrats have finally done something from the Republican playbook. And that means is just brand something as an inflation reduction and then push your agenda through it, as if it's going to impact inflation. Now, some things may impact inflation because they did a lot of things for climate, which can create alternative fuels and alternative industries, which can create jobs, which can do all these trickle down things that typically Republicans would agree with, right? But at the same time, because of the polarization in Congress right now, anything getting passed is seen as a win for Biden. Any functional government right now is seen from the right as something that the left is doing to destroy the country. So the Republicans have it easy because they don't have to govern. They just have to sit and try to stop everything. The Democrats, however, have to get legislation done. Traditionally, they've done that in the past. They've tried to compromise. But now that you have this polarization and this Trump cult driving the Republican Party, these things have to happen on the Democratic side where they're rebranding something and they're pushing through their agenda and they're pushing through their legislation. And oh, by the way, it's proven through voting and other things that the legislation that they're passing, such as, capping, insulin and healthcare access and doing things for veterans. I mean, these things are popular in the public eye, but because Republicans are being now the party of culture wars and not the party of policy, you're seeing things like the Inflation Act, which is getting pushed through because it is the Democrats' agenda.
Okay. So, Stephen.
Did you get that video that I asked you for?
Keith, this is not your show, Keith. Let's keep moving.
See, Stacey,
hey, look, no Rogaine. No Rogaine. Let's keep moving. No,
see, Stacey, that video was very important. You should have had that.
And the video was what? What was the video, Keith?
You entertain him
on the street with blacks, many blacks, and they were asking black persons.
You saw a black on the street?
What they thought about Trump and what they thought about Trump and about Biden. And every single one of them.
What does that have to do with this conversation?
It has a lot to do with it.
They're very
unhappy with the way things are going. And
You're unhappy about everything. Who cares? Who cares? People are
Okay, excuse me. I gotta move on. I can't. We can't.
A video of angry black people. You want to see a video of angry black people?
I can't hit everything because we don't have enough time for everyone.
In the mirror, Keith.
I've got to move on.
Redistribution.
Well, independent autopsy results show 28-year-old Brianna Grier's brain shifted during her fatal arrest in Hancock County. Her family and their attorney, Ben Crump, released the independent pathology results Monday. Crump says Grier was experiencing a mental health episode on July 15th when her mother called police to help. He says Hancock County Sheriff's deputies handcuffed Grier and put her in the back of a patrol car, but one of the doors was left open. She fell out of the moving car a short time later and died from her injuries after being in a coma for 6 days.
It's just so heartbreaking that for some people in our country, when they have a mental health crisis, it's not treated like a medical issue, it's treated like a criminal issue. More times than not in black communities, they see it as a criminal issue, and we have to address that in America.
Well, medical experts say Grier endured blunt force impact to the head as well as a skull fracture.
I think we do have to, as Americans, start to address mental health problems differently than we address criminal problems. Her family called the 911 for help. that to me, and they know she has a mental health issue, becomes a different type of call for the police in that Hancock County. So I'm going to ask Nas, who is down there in the ATL, to tell us about how that has gone over down there in Atlanta or in Georgia as a whole about what happened with her.
Yeah, I mean, people are upset. People have also experienced this themselves, so it was no shocker, like when they read the details of the story. But this is ultimately where we were 2 years ago, after the killing of George Floyd, where people talked about defunding the police. And instead of us having a rational conversation about, okay, how that would work, immediately you got the right and the center right from Democrats, well, the right from Republicans and the center right from Democrats saying, oh, you guys are against the police. You hate the police. What's going to happen if somebody comes and robs you? What are you going to call them? When it's like, no, the rational conversation was, okay, aren't the tasks that the police are probably not best fit for? So mental health episode, probably not the best thing for the police to show up. A homeless situation, probably not the best thing for the police to show up. And if you can take some of the budget and create different agencies to address those needs instead of sending the police, where we don't get these results like this, where, you know, they're trying to do similar to Baltimore, a rough ride, so to say, because they're upset because this person was, you know, having a mental health episode is not acting rationally, and they're having trouble, you know, with the detainment. So ultimately, we come back to the same conversation again. So no one wants to listen to reason, logic, and things that make sense. We all want to get into our corners and yell and scream and come up with different right-wing ways of solving things. And what you find is the right-wing way doesn't work. Never has, never will. I'll stop.
Okay, so let me ask Stephen, in this horrible situation, a family called for help for their family member. They finally get her into the car. I don't know if anyone saw that video. They finally get her into the car. They had a hard time. They handcuffed her. Someone didn't close the door. A police officer didn't close that back door properly. She fell out and hit her head first. Horrible, horrible. Should have never happened. People like myself and others who have experience in mental health, you know, we put people who are having episodes in rooms that are padded so they won't hurt themselves, you know, so they won't do things that in which they can hurt themselves. And so is the Hancock County Police, are they responsible for her life? Stephen.
All right. She's in a police car that when you shut the door, there's no way that the passenger can open the door. I'm assuming there's no way. And somehow somebody left the door not closed all the way.
Slightly ajar all the way.
That is so bizarre. And the fact that they did that is they're culpable. They're culpable for her death. Something needs, I don't know what needs to happen. I don't see any malice in it, but it just seems like a really, really bonehead mistake to make. And then somebody dies from it. I don't know. I don't know how mentally messed up she is. A lot of times if you're mentally like that, you can like put something in the door before they shut it. You can make it jam if you can put some clothes or your foot or put a piece of clothes. I don't know what the situation was, but it just seems bizarre to me that a cop wouldn't shut the door all the way. And let me say this about that bill we were talking about before, because you were coming to me, but you never came to me. The IRS has brought in, 80,000 more people because of this last thing that they passed. It was the West Virginia governor and Schumer, this bill that they put through. They want all this IRS in here. And the IRS is buying more guns and more ammo. And the IRS has
not the IRS, because they're taxing companies making more than $1 billion.
The IRS has a SWAT team, and they have so many people.
You can demonize it all you want. They're taxing corporations making $1 billion or more.
When taxation to begin with is theft. They are stealing
They're taxing
money,
companies making $1 billion or more. 15%. They need more capacity.
Aguna, you're in trouble. Maybe if you stay on the left side,
they're taxing companies that make $1 billion a year.
They're going to get
15%.
They're coming after everybody, Aguna. The
IRS. Okay, all right, thank you.
Just because you're loud doesn't make you right.
All right, this is not where we were going. We're talking about the terrible death of Brianna Grier. Did I pronounce her name right, Nas?
Yeah. That will not help inflation. That will not help anything.
We moved on. Stephen, can you move on?
Okay. We were talking about Brianna Grier. We weren't talking about inflation. She lost her life, and her family is not happy about that. And they don't want to hear anything about inflation. They want to know why their child is no longer here on earth. And our thoughts and prayers go out to that family. That was horrible, horrible, horrible. I wish it never happened. But let's move on to what the President Biden did.
President Biden just a short time ago signing that CHIPS Act into law, aiming to boost domestic production. We're talking about $52 billion in subsidies for chip manufacturing and research, roughly $24 billion in investment tax credit for chip plants. But take a look at how shares are doing there in terms of chips as a whole. Not getting a big lift on the back of this, largely because of what we have heard from these chip companies. Micron, as well as NVIDIA, warning about slowdown in revenue. Micron specifically warning of revenue for the current quarter falling to the low end of their recent guidance. Now, going back to the CHIPS bill, Brian, we've talked about this really to a very large extent in terms of what that's likely to mean for the chip sector here in the U.S. The White House today touting additional investments that have come in. Micron announcing a $40 billion investment in memory chip manufacturing in the U.S. It's going to be deployed between now and 2030. Qualcomm and Global Foundries announcing a new partnership, $4.2 billion in manufacturing chips. So this is great news for the White House. They've been pushing this for some time. The question waiting on the other side is, this is going to spur investment in the U.S. Is there enough demand when the manufacturing starts to kick in? Because we're talking about several years. I mean, these are not overnight projects.
It's a long process. And I think that, when we talk about the stock movement as well, I mean, that's a reason why, yes, the CHIPS Act got signed, but you're not going to see these stocks rip higher instantly because there are just so many factors over the long term, which is really the horizon by which a lot of these changes will be implemented. I mean, I was looking at a note from the UBS chief investment officer noting that the funds are going to be released over a period of time as well. I mean, the investment is not even going to be the case where, it just takes a while to build a factory or to build a foundry, but even the money itself is going to be released on kind of a timed basis. So that's going to take a number of years just from breaking ground to actually getting facilities, to actually getting the production. And who knows what the global demand picture is going to look like at that time. But I think broadly speaking, we've had so many conversations about chips on this show. The trend is more products like cars, for example, are going to require more chips. So that story should probably still be secular going forward.
And at the end of the day, it is about reducing reliance on other countries. We're not talking just about China. Taiwan, obviously a big one, South Korea. So a story that we're going to continue to watch there because there are large implications across sectors.
Okay, so let's start with Cousin Todd. This CHIPS Act, Todd, you have to unmute yourself. It's not letting me do that. This CHIP and Science Act sounds like it's the start to a big future. Someone's sound is too loud. Please make sure if you're not talking, make sure your mic is muted. It's a start to a great future for America, especially with the jobs report saying that there were a record number of new jobs in July. Cousin Todd, even though they just said this will not start immediately, how does this help America?
Okay, you can hear me, right? Okay. The jobs report has nothing to do with this, by the way. The jobs report came out the other day, and it was better.
Well, I didn't say it had anything to do with it. I was adding something to it. You're not going to make me look stupid by saying the jobs report ain't had nothing to do with it. That's not what I was saying. I was saying, in addition, this is a helpful thing.
Yes, I wasn't trying to make you look stupid. I was just clarifying to our audience that what I was saying was not what I should have been saying. No, can I speak, Stephen?
No, my name is Stacy. I'm not a man. I'm a woman. Get the face.
Tomato pork chops. Anyway, what I was saying was the jobs numbers came out, which has nothing to do with this. And I was going to go into how the jobs numbers were better than expected. So that was a success for the Biden administration. Then I was going to go into this. I was just touting his successes, and I was going to tout another one right after this. So the CHIPS bill is a good bill because that's what we're going to need for cars. And so we won't have to, Stephen, look to China, Keith. You know how you hate China. you don't have to look to China to produce chips for us. We'll be doing it ourselves in the United States. See, bringing jobs back. I would think that was a good thing. So now, if Trump did it, he would be a hero to you. So not only that, the other part of this is the healthcare part, where Medicare can negotiate lower prices. Now, if you're being reasonable, you would say that it's smart to lower drug prices. Why should you pay an arm and a leg for your drugs? And I'm
But
sure
at the same time, Cousin Todd, what this act did not do was lower insulin for diabetics.
Well, we're talking about two different acts. We're talking about the CHIP Act.
That's right. But I was touting all of his
But
accomplishments.
he was talking about, that's right, Todd Aguna went off and sidetracked into healthcare.
No.
You're missing some very key components of this bill, this CHIP Act, that's very important. In particular, because of the supply chain issue with Taiwan and where these semiconductors are typically produced right now versus in the future. You also have to make sure it's not necessarily going to help American jobs. The reason why is because these chip manufacturers will probably be manufactured primarily by robots. So that's why they'll be able to afford to produce them here in the United States. It's probably going to see an uptick of construction jobs as they build the facilities. But then it's going to taper off because the future in this country, and this is why it's so important to move away from fossil fuels and some of the oil that we're looking at right now, is because the future of this country is going to be electric vehicles, going to be clean energy, because that's what Saudi Arabia is already doing. They've already advanced. In other words, oil producing countries are trying to sell oil, not use it themselves. And unfortunately, the United States is one of the biggest consumers of oil. And that's the reason why, from a global perspective, we get into these price gouging situations. But when you bring technology over, you can produce technology locally, and you can kind of manage that supply chain from threats from China and other places like that. You can actually make sure that you're getting good chips. They're not putting things in there that can be hacked into, because that's where the next World War III is going to be fought on. It's going to be cyber. It's going to be, it's going to be via line of the sun or whatever they call it, over the horizon type theaters in which you're going into someone's infrastructure and disrupting their economies. So Biden, and I think Trump did a little bit of this when he was in office as well, but Biden actually signed that law so you got to give him credit for that. But he's bringing those technology jobs back domestically, and that's going to be important, especially for the future. Okay, let me share my screen. I want you to see this article from the fact sheet from the White House. It says that the CHIPS and Science Act will bolster U.S. leadership in semiconductors. It will also, let me scroll down, promote U.S. innovation in wireless supply chains, advance U.S. global leadership in the technologies of the future, catalyze regional economic growth and development, provide STEM opportunities to more of America to participate in good paying skilled jobs. And this is where the Job Act does kind of play in here, Aguna. But Stephen, if Trump had done this, would you have seen it different?
No, I wouldn't have seen anything different. This is more government spending that we don't need right now. It's not going to help anything. It's not going to make anything better for the people that are struggling out here today. It was the worst thing we could have done. And
Did you read it? What the hell is wrong with you?
The governor of West Virginia got whacked.
Investing in America is
governor
wrong.
of whatever other state got whacked. And she made sure that rich people, the very, very, very rich people got a better deal.
Did you just read it?
What do you call this?
Okay, so let me get Nas in.
This is bad.
Let me get Nas in. Go ahead, Nas. What did this act do? I mean, will it really bolster those things that the White House fact sheet says it will?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys described it accurately. Like Aguna said, yes, it's going to be jobs temporarily, but eventually they're going to move into robotics, so it's not going to be this huge glut of jobs. But the most important thing is this is essentially a pandemic response. The whole world saw that supply chains are not only important, but they're also really delicate. And if something gets upset, then it leads to all kinds of dominoes falling that you can't really prepare for. So the answer to that worldwide has been okay, domestically, there are certain things we're going to have to produce so we don't have to depend on other people. And if things get clogged up, then, we're kind of shit out of luck. So PPE, chips, things like that, it's not going to be just the United States. You're going to see multiple countries do things like this to where they kind of protect themselves. So the job part is the least important aspect of this. The most important part is kind of self-reliance and making sure that a supply chain issue or just a beef with another country can't lead to, you being shut out of an essential item that your nation needs. So to kind of wrap everything in a bow, just think about it. Multinationals search the globe for the cheapest labor they can find, which work really well for these multinational corporations. So you can, create PPP overseas, bring it back over here, sell it at a huge profit and be fine. But what happens if that supply chain is disrupted and you can't get it back over here when the country needs it at the time the most? That profit don't mean so much no more. So yeah, multinationals are going to have to get out of certain businesses because they can't invest in them to the same degree because, they can't chase that same profit. But it's overall good for the citizen because now you'll have the protection of knowing that stuff is already there. Like the thing we're going through now with the car, why cars are so high, a part of that is the majority of the chips through the supply chain were supplying iPads and computers and things like that. We did not have the car chips ready for when the disruption happened. And that's why you see the cost of cars go up. So again, spending is not always bad. Stop assuming that any government spending is bad. It's an investment in your country, and you got to do this for the future.
Industry is spurred by government. That's why we have the internet. It's because of NASA and some of the innovations we made in the space program. It trickled down to actual industry and manufacturing. So this whole notion that government spending is bad, especially when you're coupled with industry, they didn't do this just from an ivory tower. They worked with industry and probably a bunch of lobbyists to come up with these incentives to spur this industry in the country. So this ancient Yahoo caveman theory of all government is bad, all this other stuff, you better believe that most people on K Street are not government people writing these legislations. These are corporations. If you want to say all corporations are bad, then you need to go after the owners of the corporation. And guess who owns these corporations? You and I do. You can invest in these corporations. You can actually go out and buy stock right now to go out and take advantage of what they're doing with this Chip Innovation Act. But Stephen would rather have you live in a basement 3 levels down and just say, they're coming for your guns. They're coming for you.
It doesn't matter, Gunnar.
This is where in America we make money. It's called capitalism.
We're not going to mine for what we need for batteries. We're not going to mine for what it's not going to matter what chips we have for the cars. We're not going to be able to mine for the batteries. China's doing all that in Africa and a lot of other countries. We're not going to be able to compete with them in this country.
Let me say this. Let me piggyback off of what Nas was just saying. And this should go to Stephen and Keith. They were just talking. This is how flip-floppy they are. They were just talking about oil. We should be able to drill for our own oil here in the United States. Well, now we're making our own chips. I would think you would say that's a good thing. So we're not relying on anybody else, right? Just like you don't want us to rely on anybody else for oil, correct? That's for Steve.
Even though, we got to make sure we know those two things are really, really different. Like, if you wanted to sell cocaine in your city and you were making money, that'd be fine. But if Pablo Escobar moved to your neighborhood, your little bit of cocaine would not be able to survive. He'd run you out of business because he could sell it for so much cheaper. So with oil, it's never going to be about, we just need to drill more, and then the price will come down.
Of course not, but this is their silly theory.
I'm not going to give what Todd said. I'm just saying just in general because it's something I heard Stephen and Keith saying earlier.
That's right.
They have enough oil.
The windmills are going to take care of us.
I went to Saudi Arabia with his begging bowl, like we talked about.
We set a price, and you dummies pay for it anyway.
And the price started dropping. Like, it is what it is, man. He had to make a deal.
All right.
Unprecedented development at the home of former President Donald Trump. Sources tell ABC News that Mar-A-Lago was raided by FBI agents. Our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Carl, joins us with more. Jonathan.
Byron, this is quite a development. Former President Donald Trump says that his home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, was raided by the FBI. In a lengthy statement, he says that agents, quote, even broke into my safe, and that his home, quote, is currently under siege, raided and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. No comment tonight from the FBI, although federal law enforcement sources tell ABC News that the raid did happen and is related to allegations that Trump improperly removed documents from the White House. Byron?
Our thanks to Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Let's start. This is our round table. We're out of time. Let's start with Keith. Then Stephen, then Nas, Aguna, and then Cousin Todd. On them, we weren't able to go over at least 3 things I want to talk about. But let's talk about them raiding former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Keith.
Yep. Yeah. And what do you want? What is the question?
I want you to comment on them raiding.
Well, I'll comment on it if you can mute the naysayers. But anyway, Trump, I would cite the Fourth Amendment. It says that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. So my question would be, what is the probable cause that they had to issue a warrant for Trump's to go through Trump's house and his property, even when he wasn't even there, by the way? So what is the probable cause? What is the reason? What has he done? What has been proven beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt? So that's my question.
Okay, thank you. Stephen.
I'd like one of them to answer that, by the way.
Oh, we can. She won't let us.
Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, there was no reason for them to do what they did. It was all it did was solidify Donald Trump's base. It was that these guys on the circuit say a judge said this judge was a Democrat that was also a lawyer at one time for Epstein. It's all really disgusting. And the,
you know the name?
FBI,
you give us the name?
is nothing but an arm of the Democrat Party, and the higher up in the FBI, the younger guys are okay. But this is a bunch of garbage. Everybody knows it's garbage. They shouldn't have done it like this. They could have easily.
So let me ask you.
They could have easily just worked with Trump. There's no need to do a raid. There's no need to bust into his place. This is criminal. What they did is criminal, and they're going to pay for it.
Stephen, because when you say they're going to pay for it,
hey, listen to the stupid people laughing.
Woo, boy!
People
how
laughing.
many of us knew he was
when in 2022, when the Republicans take over, these people that did this are going to pay for what they did. Because what they did was wrong to Donald Trump.
Okay, so let me ask you. Let me ask you, Stephen. When you say they're going to pay for it, are you saying they're physically threatening?
Yeah, I'm saying they're going to hang. They're going to hang from their necks, and then they're going to shoot them, and they're going to drag them behind cars, and then they're going to bring them back to life, and then they're going to cut their heads off. What do you mean they're going to do anything physical?
That's why he's in the basement. That's why he's in the basement.
What the FBI has done to Donald Trump, because I was on the bottom floor. I understand. Y'all know on this show, anybody can go back 10 years or 5 years or 4 years, how many years? And when I am a never Trumper, and I'm the one on here saying this, we need to try to impeach him, even if he didn't do anything wrong. I was there. So don't pretend that you don't know, because I was that person doing it on this show.
Yeah, but
so
now
I'm saying reasonably, I
You've
saw what
been
Donald Trump did to
radicalized.
this country, and I saw what the Democrats are doing to this country, and
You
the
saw it.
Democrats are going to pay, because all they did was solidify the strength of Donald
Okay,
Trump's
come on.
people,
He can't
and you
take
don't
them
have
all
a
the
chance.
time.
You don't have a chance now. This was the
Okay.
dumbest thing the FBI could have
Bye,
done.
Felicia.
Was
By following the law?
people riled up.
Following
Keith
the
was
law.
not a Trumper. I was not a Trumper.
Keith
We were
was
for
so.
Ted Cruz.
Both of you
We
guys,
weren't for-
y'all
we weren't
yahoos,
for
we don't
Donald Trump.
care.
But
We don't care.
originally,
All right.
but what I'm saying
All right,
now
so
is
let me
the
ask
FBI
Nas.
is a stooge of the Democrat Party. And
Now
they
they
need- and
are.
need
Now
to be
they are.
brought
When
down.
Trump was in office, it wasn't.
All
They
right, so
weaponized
Nas.
it.
No, if
Now
Trump
they're-
did anything, if Trump weaponized any group, I'd be against Trump. I was scared Trump
But you
would do
wouldn't
it.
even acknowledge that he did.
Okay.
You let
Yeah.
Stephen go on for 4 hours.
All right. So my question to Nas is, could the former president be charged with violating the Espionage Act because he took a lot of documents out of the White House?
Well, more than anything, it's what documents he took, not how many. So we're talking about supposedly top secret things, classified things that he may have liberated to his home. So the danger in this is, like, when you go after a president, you can't miss. So all of the I's have to be dotted and the T's crossed. And remember, for a judge to sign off on a federal warrant like that, it means that they had to show exhaustion, which means they had to try to work with him before, exhaustion being a legal term, meaning you tried to work with him before and you went up to the brink of what you could do without physically being there and taking the items or searching for the items. So this judge that Stephen is criticizing, this is his career. This is his life. If this goes the other way, that judge is going to see like a mark in history like you've never seen before, as far as like somebody being discredited and shunned. Now, knowing that, the likelihood of him signing this because he knew they had the goods and because they brought forth a case to him that was so strong, he was willing to put his whole reputation and livelihood on the line. Because there's one thing about Trump we all know. He will sue the hell out of anybody if he can. So in this case, the fact that they stepped out so strong, the fact that they did come to visit him, and no, it wouldn't matter if you were home or not, if the FBI has a search warrant on you, and no, this is not a violation of the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, as Keith said. He said no unreasonable searches. Unreasonable, very, very important word within that discussion. Meaning they used every legal channel that they could until they got the document to do what they needed to do. Now, the question to the Trump supporters ultimately becomes, at what point do you throw him overboard and go ahead and ride the DeSantis train? Because this is over, man. He's not going to be able to raise funding like he could before. He's going to have legal trouble beyond belief, and I don't know if he actually has money for the legal trouble he has as far as the payments he's going to have to make. And look, you just got to give it up, man. Your guy wasn't that smart. And he made mistakes, and they were able to wait and slide and just wait till they wrapped him on the hand. Nixon went away quietly. This guy wouldn't go away quietly. And he's got way too much exposed for them not to be able to get him. Like, this is not like some political get back. This is you're sloppy at doing criminal activities.
You're sloppy at doing your job. Look.
Wait. Let me show you this. This is Axios.com article written by Mike Allen, exclusive photos of Trump's tail toilet. It says, remember the toilet scoop in Axios AM earlier this year? Maggie Haberman's forthcoming book about former President Trump will report that White House resident staff periodically found wads of paper clogging a toilet and believed the former president, a notorious destroyer of Oval Office documents, was the flusher. Here are the toilets, and here are the documents, as you can see at the bottom of the toilet. Go ahead, Aguna.
Okay, so let's just take a step back here. Okay, as president of the United States, we're not talking about you. We're talking about me. One of the funniest quotes I heard this week was one of the candidates for governor up there in Wisconsin said, well, if FBI does this to Trump, they could do it to anybody. No, he is the president of the United States. If he writes something on a piece of toilet paper, that is archival material that goes through the National Archives and require federal approval. Yeah, big government, but that's how it works. That's how it's always worked. For him to take all these documents down to Mar-a-Lago, which is not a SCIF, it's not a secured location. You have top secret government documents down there. The archives requested them to be returned back in January. He only sent back a few items. He didn't send back all of the stuff. So they went down there and got it. It's government, it's the country following its laws. It's not big government going after Trump. They went down and got top secret material that he should have never had. He didn't follow protocols. And if you guys just think about it and stop being so political, if this guy is so sloppy and so dumb and naive to hold top secret documents at a golf course in Florida where all these foreign people are coming in and out of, and it's a national security list, if he doesn't take attention to detail on something like that, in which there are protocols and there are processes and procedures in place and there are actual threats to national security, why would you want him to be president again? What else is he not going to take attention to? And if he doesn't give a damn about following the laws of this country, what makes you think he gives a damn about you? And yet you guys rather look like idiots defending this nonsense on this show week after week. It's the same thing. You guys are defending a guy that wasn't qualified to be president, and you guys look like idiots when you sit here and try to justify it, like Stephen is now.
Okay,
idiot.
Thank you, Cousin Todd.
Okay, am I on?
Go ahead.
You can hear me, right? Okay, this is the thing for Stephen and Keith. Now, at least
talk to the viewers. Don't talk to these guys.
At least you can be fair, Keith and Stephen. He should not have taken those papers from the White House to his house. That's all we're saying. He was not supposed to do that. That's all.
Give the papers back.
And so, they said, hey, you're not supposed to do that. Remember Hillary Clinton with those emails, and you know the story. There was classified information and blah, blah, blah. So you wanted her.
They never raided her house.
That's because they asked for the stuff back, Stephen. He wouldn't give it back.
They never raided her house.
He never gave it back.
Yeah, he keeps repeating that.
Donald Trump was working with them.
He broke the law.
This is more BS from the FBI. This is total BS.
Stephen is an idiot, man.
So,
you're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
And
you're on the side that's going to destroy you, and you're too stupid.
Listen at him.
Yeah, we're gonna have a hard time getting a lot of these people out of this cult, man. This is a cult.
I know, but and I don't think you can get them out of it. But the thing is, Stephen used to be a little more reasonable. Now, what I just said was he wasn't supposed to take those papers, and Stephen would have said back in the day, "You're right. He should have never taken them." So now they've asked for them back. January, they sent 15 boxes. Can you imagine? 15 boxes of papers. Well, he still had more, and he won't give them back. So they had to go and get them, Stephen. That's all. So they got a judge, and they went to get them. That's all.
What is he saying?
They
had a warrant.
Show me the warrant.
Donald Trump has the warrant.
Nobody's seen the warrant yet.
Donald Trump has the warrant. He can show it to you.
He
has the warrant. He can show it to you if you want to.
He can show you the warrant, but nobody else.
He's not. Donald Trump isn't showing you the warrant. Show me the warrant. He has it. Donald Trump.
All right, we're out of time. Cousin Todd, are you finished? Thank you.
It's like he can show you his taxes.
Todd, pop your collar. Pop your collar, Todd.
Look how crazy he is.
Let me make
Todd,
one more.
Go ahead, Keith.
And I don't care what you say, Stephen. You have a mullet.
Let's just say this, guys. Can we all agree that since you say that the warrant, the purpose of the warrant was to go and get the papers that
we
he
don't
stole?
know. We haven't seen the warrant.
So I got a mullet.
Is that what you're saying?
I got a mullet.
What?
We
Go
haven't
ahead,
seen
Keith.
the warrant.
Keith, make your point.
Okay.
Hurry up. We're out of time.
My point is this. If they got what they wanted, if they found what they wanted, then let's see it turn up in the next few sessions. Let's see if it turns up that let's see what happens. Yeah, let's see.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You realize that's what's going to happen.
This is my mother.
You know, that's what's going to happen anyway, right? The sun hopefully will come up tomorrow. We'll know by tomorrow.
Let's see.
Hey, Todd, put your collar up. Put your collar up.
All right.
Right, Nas.
Go ahead.
Let's see if it comes up, Nas. Let's see if it comes up in the next commission. The next
We're out of time.
meeting.
You guys are hunting for a conspiracy that you
Why
can
would it
love.
what do you think it did this practice?
We're
All
not
right.
scared, okay?
I'm going
We're
to
not
pause this
scared.
for a minute so I
Independent
can talk.
thinker.
We're out of time. To our first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. Thank you. Thank
The
you.
man
Thank
with
you
the
to our women
mullet.
and men. Can you hear me?
Your thing is doing that again. I don't know what you just.
Okay. All right. Let me make sure it doesn't do it. All right. Can you hear me now? To the first responders in our communities, you make our lives very livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the women and men of the U.S. military and all that you do and sacrificing your life so that we are free to choose to say whatever we want to on the show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Stephen, the independent thinker, Keith, the constitutional conservative, and my cousin Todd. Yes, he is my real cousin Todd. I'm Stacey Johnson. Let's keep this conversation going. Check us out on Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Network. We're on Twitch, Twitter. Check out our Instagram page. We are also on YouTube. And thank you, Nas. Todd, really, really appreciate you. We'll see you next
Todd.
week.
And your
Good
shirt.
night.
Dance, Keith. Come on. Come on, Mandalorian.
Come on, Keith. You gonna dance? Hey, do the Trump shuffle.
Steven, you are crazy. I didn't know
I'm
you
gonna
were
do
so
the Trump
crazy.
shuffle.
You can't make this stuff up.
Steven, bye. I'm scared of you now, Steven. I wasn't scared of you before, but now I'm afraid of you.
I was joking when I said something about your beard. I think your beard looks good.
No, ma'am. Ma'am, you
We're
are
coming
mentally
to
unstable.
get you. We're